It's my distinct honor and privilege to introduce Meridith Elliott Powell as our final keynote speaker for today. So we've got some awesome speakers lined up. So thank you, Meridith, for joining us today. Not only for today, but I think this is your second appearance as a keynote at SPE. So very awesome. I appreciate all the time that you're spending here. The topics are absolutely relevant to everyone on the call. So thank you for that. Meridith is a tremendously accomplished individual, being voted one of the top 15 business growth experts to watch at Currency Fair, top sales expert to follow by LinkedIn, and top 41 motivational sales speakers. She's authored 6 books, including Cut Through the Excuses, Send Sales Through the Roof, and her latest, Thrive Strategies to Turn Uncertainty to Competitive Advantage. Meridith helps leaders and business owners learn new rules of success in this new economy. And without further ado, I will hand the stage over to you, Meridith. Thank you for being here and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Great. I am excited to be here and excited to be back. And we are going to cover a word today, struggle, that I feel like every time I say the word, I feel the energy just suck out of the room. But when you think about COVID-19, we are definitely in the midst of struggle and uncertainty. And really the fascinating thing about struggle and uncertainty is the fact that people either come through it and they flourish, or they fail, and there seems to be no middle ground. And we wanted to do this keynote today because we wanted to learn the lessons and really talk about what are the traits and the attributes of people that really thrive through uncertain and struggling times. What do they do? What do they do differently? Again, that's me. Just so you know who is talking with you today. These video boxes aren't very big, but what are you going to gain by hanging on and attending for the next 20, 25 minutes or so? Well, you're going to gain what it takes to build a confident mindset, to build resiliency, but most importantly, what you're going to gain is what does it take to deliver or drive success from uncertainty. We're going to start this presentation really talking a little bit about what you need to do to prepare and get yourself in shape for the battle you're going through. But then we're going to finish with what you can do to really help the others around you, because this isn't something you can go through by yourself. You're not big enough to solve these challenges. It's going to take a whole group of people around you. So as I said at the beginning, struggle is really a word that every time I say it, it's like I feel the energy just lift from the room. We don't like it because it's tough. It makes you question everything. It takes so much more energy than you ever thought you had to. Everybody I talk to right now is saying just how exhausted they are from being on Zoom calls all day, from strategizing and planning. I mean, it wears us out. It is a daily fight to get this through it. And at the end of the day, it's just unfair. I mean, it isn't right that we have to go through this, and it's unfair. So struggle is tough, but there's also some unbelievable value from struggle. It pushes you to perform at a higher level. I mean, people really come to the plate and they are at their best during struggle. It deepens and really binds relationship. It connects you to the people that you work with and that you're going through the struggle with at a level that will stay even after the struggle. It gives you new perspective and innovation. It, in essence, gets you out of the rut. It builds confidence and character, but more than anything, it becomes a new set point. It becomes a point where you're going to be able to accomplish even more going forward because you went through this struggle. So that's really the first thing, is to begin to shift your paradigm and look at what you're going through as an opportunity rather than something that's going to prevent you from moving forward. So there's life-changing lessons from struggle that, based on some research done with both prisoners of war and self-made billionaires. With prisoners of war, these are people that they researched that were kept in captivity longer than 6 years. I mean, that meant that they weren't around other people, that they had no hope of knowing if or when it was going to end. And when they studied the prisoners that survived, that were able to come back and continue on with their life, here are the things that kept them going. Number one is they found a support group. Even though they couldn't talk, they couldn't engage with other people, they found a way through code to talk and connect and to share their fears with other people. They kept a view of what the world would be like after. In other words, they had dreams. It was very much a mental game. They had to think beyond the walls of their prison. And they had to have resiliency. No matter what happened, they had to be able to quickly recover and go back into their routine. But the biggest thing is they weren't necessarily optimists or pessimists. They were realists. And I think this is so important for us right now, that to really accept the reality, the hand that they've been dealt, and do whatever it takes in the moment to survive and just get to the next piece. Now, the research was self-made billionaires, and just for your information, 67% of billionaires are self-made. They did it themselves. They came from very humble beginnings with no connections, no necessarily education, and no expectation of becoming successful. And number one is they believed that it was possible. Believed that education was the path, didn't have to be a formal education, but that knowledge was power. Connection is to be around positive people, people that believed that a next step could happen. No ego to do whatever it takes, and risk and return, that you go all in no matter what. But the big lesson from them is to accept no net, that really understand that there's no one to rescue you, nobody to pay the bills, and nobody to necessarily care for you. In other words, get you and your team to the point of own it. If you're going to be successful, it's time to get scrappy. It's up to you to do it. So there is a lot to be learned from people who have made it through struggle and people who have done it successful. Number one is a confident mindset. You got to work on your own mindset if you're going to come through this challenge and emerge successful. I really want to emphasize that most of us are going to make it through. That's not a question. We're talking about the strategies that you need to have in place to really emerge from this crisis, really coming out thriving with unbelievable opportunity on the other side. And number one is you need to work daily on your own mindset. Every single one of us, we have good days and we have bad days. So how do you build your own confidence, your own belief that you have what it takes to really not only find the path forward, but build the path forward and make sure that path comes out someplace that is even beyond your wild imagination of success? You got to have purpose. You've got to really understand your why. Is your why going to make sure that the company emerges successful, that you're going to take care of your family, maybe your people around you? But what is the purpose? That has to be the driving force. This was so clear in prisoners of war. I mean, their purpose was to return home to their families, to be able to serve their country again. I mean, purpose really drives you and it gives you intrinsic motivation at another level. So you've got to clarify what your purpose is. You've got to expect failure. Set your mind for setbacks as learning. Every single one of us are going to try things. They aren't going to work out, but it is part of the learning path. Define your vision. What do you see as success after this crisis? And then chart your course. How are you going to get there? Then you've got to let go of that path, because you've got to be married to the destination, but not married to the path to get there. And small wins. If you want to build your confidence, you want to build the confidence of your team, give yourself small wins. Small steps and progress are what build confidence. Once the confidence, you work on your mindset, it's really about your resiliency. How can you dust yourself off, get back up, and keep going no matter what? Well, you've got to realize that what you focus on expands. Listen, there's a lot of things to complain about every single day, and you're justified and you have a right to complain on those things. But it's fascinating that what we focus on is what we will get more of. So you need to really focus on the things that you can control and forget about the rest. Focus on the people who are positive in your life and really try to distance yourself from the rest. Focus on things that you can read that are motivating. And maybe if the news channel or the news you read is not as positive, maybe limit yourself a little on that. But you will get more of what you focus on. And if you focus more on finding the path out, then you'll get more answers and more solutions for that. And again, you have got to take action. I named my business back when I founded it in 2004. I called it Motion First. And the reason I called it Motion First is because I believe that's where progress happens. And you don't know exactly how things are going to turn out or exactly when things will be back to whatever normal is going to be, but you need to keep moving every day and taking action. And you need to build your network because it will change your life. This is the time to really reach out and connect with people. I make a commitment to reach out and just check in on at least 2 people somewhere in my business network every day. And it really amazes me how much I learn just from connecting with other people. So much so that I started a new podcast called Common Sense Solution for Uncommon Times, because I'm amazed what people are doing to bootstrap themselves and to get through this. And connection is very important. You see it with the research I gave you with prisoners of war, with the research I give you with people who have reached the status of billionaire. It really is a matter of who you know, who you're connected with, and really what you're learning from them. The other is focus on others. When I was a kid, your mother probably told you this too, but when I was a kid, my mother always told me that the fastest way to get past my own problems was to focus on somebody else's. So if you focus on checking in with other people, seeing how they're doing, both from a professional and a personal level, you'll build your network, but you'll learn ideas. You'll also be less focused on what isn't working for you and more focused on what's working for other people. And that's going to have a huge return on investment for you. Self-awareness. You've got to know your own strengths and your own weaknesses and focus on what needs to change. In the research with prisoners of war, many said that their first instinct was just to roll up in a ball and just give up, and that was a weakness in them, and something that discipline to turn that around was something that needed to change. When the interviews were done with self-made people, they all had limiting things or areas of their strengths that they could really play on. So much self-awareness and understand what you need, what you're good at, what you're limited with, is something that you need to spend time focusing on. You've got to be able to see your blind spots right now and be able to shore up those blind spots, only if it means building your own skills or surrounding yourself with people who can shore those up. And last but not least, you really need to take care of you. It may seem counterintuitive at a time when we all need to be working, probably 100 hours a day, but you've got to be taking care of yourself, your health, your exercise, finding time to laugh and getting plenty of sleep. But my personal favorite is managing your energy. As I said at the beginning of this, struggle takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of time, and it wears you out. And if you're not doing things to rebuild that energy, then you don't have enough energy to take care of yourself, and you don't have enough energy to take care of everybody else. Time cannot be managed, but your energy can be managed. You have control through self-awareness of understanding what pours energy into you and what takes energy out of you. And when things are taking energy out of you, you need to build in some things, whether that's time with your kids, time watching Netflix, just sitting and meditating, whatever it is, going for a walk, but what pours energy back into you, because this takes a lot of energy and you're really going to need it. So let's talk about how struggle can drive success. Once you've done those foundational pieces, you're ready for this last piece, and that is, as crazy as it sounds, you can actually make struggle work for you. It is going to be few organizations that emerge at a whole another level. But if you use struggle to drive success, you can be one of those organizations. You can be one of those people. But I've got to stress, if you're not working on your mindset first, if you haven't built resiliency, you're not ready for this step. So again, they go in order. So number one, you've got to understand that collaboration is the new competitive advantage. That's really where it starts. I think we're seeing this all over the news. We're watching countries work together. We're watching former competitors start to work together. Everybody's understanding that that it is the new competitive advantage. That the answers and the solutions that we need, they are bigger than one person. They are probably bigger than one company. So you've got to focus on building your own reputation as a collaborator, as somebody who brings people together. And then you've got to find people that are like that. Choose people on your team that have the ability to work together. And then you have got to ask the best question. People don't collaborate on what question to ask. They collaborate on the solution. So as the leader, you need to be choosing the question, and then people will collaborate on the solution. And from there, you can build the strategy. One of my favorite stories around this is World War II. And you have Winston Churchill, Stalin, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. If they'd have sat and tried to figure out what the question was, I shudder to think where we would all be today. But Winston Churchill said that the question was to defeat the Nazis. And all three of those leaders could find the solutions and agree to the solutions to solve that problem. I've got a CEO right now in her company. We're working on collaboration and really moving her in to this space. And what she's doing is she's asking the questions of, how do we get people back to work? What is our company going to look like after COVID is finished? She's getting everybody on board to solve those problems, but she's choosing the questions and letting them design the solutions. So you've got to think about, what are you doing to build your reputation as a collaborator, to be seen as that person who can bring people together? And then what type of people do you need to have on your team to be collaborating? Who's your avatar? And what questions do you need to be asking now to move your organization forward? And how and should you be collaborating beyond the walls of your company? Again, this is probably bigger than just your company. The answers that you need are about building collaboration beyond. Number two, you've got to balance current state with future state. You've got to be leading for the here and now, as well as leading for what's coming. You've got to be moving in both worlds. You've got to continually stabilize your business, but you've got to give people a vision of the future. That shared purpose is what it's going to ignite their motivation. It's what's going to get them working together. And you need to be talking about that future a lot. You need to be showing them what this is going to look like down the road, what they're aiming for. You've got to question the relevancy of everything you're doing and continually integrate the future state into everyday life. In other words, you have to condition your team for change. You have to build their change muscle. So an exercise that I like to use with my clients is simply using these terms, and every month having a brainstorming session around what's happening with society, what's happening with competition, what's happening with technology, what's happening with customers, and what, if anything, do we need to be aware of that we need to either change or integrate into our plan. Why do you need to do this? Because the truth is, there is more happening outside of your organization than is happening inside that can dictate the success of your organization. And the more you talk about change, the more comfortable your team will become with change. And the more they will come up with ideas to drive change. And that's what you need. You need to be ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve. If you want to leverage the uncertainty and drive towards success, then you need to get out in front of it. And the only way to do that is to be the leader that is constantly pushing your team to talk about change and to talk about the things that are happening outside the walls of your organization. If you see change coming, it can be the greatest opportunity your organization can have. But if you ignore it, then it will bury you. Listen, I've been using this with the organizations that I work with for years, and nobody saw the pandemic coming. But for the organizations that I work with that use a model like this, their team was conditioned for change. So when it was time to pivot, they were able to do it on the dime because they were used to talking about things changing and moving and used to being ahead of the curve. You've got to increase the pace, or else you got to realize that the pace is increasing, and you better get your team to be able to move faster. You got to keep the pace with change, or as I like to say, even get a little bit ahead of it. And that means that the problems that you're working on, you need to work on those problems differently. You need to develop agile teams, which is something you may already be doing, but they're teams that are put together to actually work on some of the priority problems and issues. And you set those priorities that you want them to focus on. You give them the time to work on them. Too often we create task force and teams and we let them meet for an hour once a week. This is about creating the space where that team is allowed to work a full day, a week, or even a week at a time on those particular issues and problems that are most pressing to your organizations. You set a deadline. You give them no more than 2 weeks, maybe 30 days, and you get them to implement that strategy quickly, and you execute and you improve. But you've got to be getting up your biggest priorities, setting teams to work on that, and moving at rapid speed with those. So you think about having one challenge and putting together a cross-functional team. Clarify the issue you want them to work on, set the time frame, give them no more than 2 weeks, implement the strategy, improve and re-implement. That's how you're going to move in today's marketplace. But you need to figure out what are your biggest problems, put the team together to work on them, give them no more than 30 days, and then implement a strategy. You've got to be moving at the pace that we're moving at today. And last but not least, you have got to leverage this uncertainty. You've got to make this uncertainty work for you. You've got to embrace it. Ask yourself, what is the reality of the situation that we're working in? What impact does it have? And what change do you need to make to increase stability? Where, in other words, where is the opportunity in the uncertainty? I've got a CEO of a technology company right now, and they were dealing with a lot of fact that their reality was a lot of their customers, over a third, were probably not going to re-up. Looking to cut expenses, they were probably going to lose a third of their customer base. Now, add to that, they've been trying to get most of their customers to become ACH, go ahead and pay via ACH, and most customers had resisted for years. So all they did was combined those two realities. They took the fact that a third of their customer base was going to drop, combined it with the fact that they really needed, in order to cut their own expenses, to get their customer base to pay via ACH. And they offered those customers a discount if they would stay with the technology. They would and they would give them a month free, but only if they would become ACH customers. And what happened was only less than 10% of their customer base dropped. So there's opportunity in the uncertainty. You just need to find it. And you do that by really embracing your reality, saying, this is the situation that we're in. What's the impact of that? And where is the opportunity? So there you've got it. Those are the things. Your plan of action is you need a confident mindset. You've got to work on your own mindset every single day to really build the resiliency that you need to get through the struggle. And then use uncertainty to drive success. Understand that success today is about collaboration. You're going to need everybody's ideas on board in order to be successful. You've got to balance the current state with the future state. You've got to give people a vision of what's coming, and keep them moving towards that vision. At the same time, you're stabilizing the business. You've got to increase the pace at which you work. Rather than allowing people months and even a year to work on things, your biggest priorities, you need to create an agile team to get those things done quickly. And you've got to leverage uncertainty. Really think about the reality you're dealing with, and then flip the script on it and ask yourself, how can it really work for you? So I really want to thank you so much for your time. Again, I've got free tools and resources on how you can emerge successful. You can grab those at my website. If we are not connected, I would love to be connected. I'm a big believer that if you build your network, it will change your life. So if you reach out, I will connect with you. Scott, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Excellent, Meredith. Thank you so much for all of the wisdom and things that you're able to share. I see certainly relevance not only in the business environment, but even the aspects of everything else in our lives and all the struggle that we see today from everything. So I appreciate you being here and sharing that very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, please, for those that are online, if you have questions, please throw them into the Q&A chat. And we will address those as they come in. So please don't be shy. While people are doing that, maybe I'll start with the first question, and it's around the concept of balance, right? So balancing the current state, current versus future. It's always hard to try to do this, at least me personally. You have the things that are immediate, you have the things that you really feel you need to get done right now, and it deters from the strategy that you talked about and the future vision that you talked about. Do you have any sort of guidance or things you might be able to talk about there? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I always, I tell the leaders that I work with is, number one, start and stop every meeting with your vision. With your vision of where you're going and what you see. It's a message of hope. You see it with our leaders, whether it's the governors or the presidents or any of our leaders, they do it. They always start when they speak to us of the fact that we will recover. Things will, that things will come back. Things will come back to normal. And I think that's an important way to do it. The other is, I would really encourage you to get those agile teams working towards some of the bigger issues. I'm so impressed with the CEO that I'm working with that has her teams working now with what it's going to be like to get back to work and what it's going to be like to what life is going to be. She's got people already working on the future, and she gives reports to those.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that. And again, please ask questions in the chat. I'll continue to ask a few until some things roll in. You talked about increasing pace. I think when you first said that, you had mentioned that people feel like they're already working 100 hours a day.
Yeah.
And sort of the initial knee-jerk reaction was, oh my gosh, I can't handle anymore. But I think the reality is, in connection with collaboration, some other things, how do you suggest teams sort of look at increasing their pace, matching the market changes and the pace of all of that market?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question, because I think I have some clarifying to do about it. To me, I feel like we are incredibly busy. I don't think we're as productive. At least I can speak for myself, and that's been my biggest lesson. And if I'm going to increase the pace, I've got to get clear on the priorities and let some of the other stuff go. And so I think the answer to that is that you need to make sure that you, but more importantly, your teams are focused on what has the biggest impact. And if you focus on what has the biggest impact, it's going to increase the space, and allow the time for that. Give them the time to work on the things that matter, and give them the permission to let go of the stuff that doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. It's hard to implement, but I think it does you definitely find value in that. My own personal experience, I see that in times where things get hard, or maybe even times where you feel like there's a plateau in either your career or something else, that's really a struggle. And you talked a little bit about, I think the one of the first things you said is if you can overcome struggle, you reset your new set point. I really did like that aspect. It gives you sort of a new norm, a new level that you're playing to. So very, very well taken there.
Yeah. I have got to leave you. I've got to run to do another webinar.
Okay.
But please, I would encourage people to reach out, ask questions, and it has been an honor to be with you again.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Meridith, very much so. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks.